Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and a little bit of a different video this week for you all. Not so much on the four-wheel drive front this week. This was a video I took an opportunity to record. I was going on a work trip down towards Bairnsdale, and it's a video about the Omeo Highway. I first drove this about 12 years ago, and at that time about half of it was not actually sealed, it was gravel. It is a sealed road all the way through, so if you watch my stuff looking to watch four-wheel drive adventures, this one may not be for you. It was an opportune time to film this as well because Lake Hugh, with the rain that we've had and everything, is about as full as it's ever been. So yeah, really scenic. So Omeo Highway, we're heading north to south. So it turns off from the Murray Valley Highway, just past Callaghan, and heads south towards Omeo, as you might expect. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to film this is there's a host of really cool camping spots, that a lot of them along the Mitta River and other rivers along here that are just well worth checking out, and super accessible, obviously, because the Omeo Highway is a bitumen sealed road. It is a fairly twisty road, so I think it's one of those roads that is perhaps not recommended for large caravans. There's no restriction on taking vans or anything like that down there, but as you'll see from some of the footage, it does get a bit tight and twisty in places. So coming up here on the left is the first campsite, and you do have to keep a sharp eye out for it. Now I believe this is Peaks Point Campground, yeah, just there on the left, so it's right on the water. Obviously the water's up a bit higher than it normally is. There's a long drop there, it's got nice level grassy campsites, really easy to access, and it's actually not far out of town. Like if you were coming out of Albury like we do as a base, you could probably be there in about 45 minutes. So yeah, definitely one to keep in mind. Now as we head south on the Omeo Highway, there's another couple of just day use areas, but along the way there you get some cracking views out over the valley, and as I said, the water level is up quite a lot at the moment compared to what you would normally expect to see. Along the highway too, you do pass through a couple of really historic towns, Eskdale and Mitta, that's probably a little more well known, particularly for the Mitta Pub. And as you can see, everything's nice and green, just purely from the amount of rain that we've had. And certainly for the first half of the Omeo Highway, and when I say first half, I mean this northern half that we're driving north to south, you can keep up a fairly good pace for most of it. And you do get views across to the ranges surrounding Lake Dartmouth there along most of it. So it is definitely one of those tourist drives, if you like. Certainly one you can enjoy for the scenery as much as just wanting to actually get somewhere. Yeah, that's a little track on the left there. That is a good alternate back way up to the Dartmouth Fire Tower. I've been up through there a couple of times. And on the right hand side here, that's the turn off up to Lockhart's Gap, which is a nice drive. Popular little run through there for a lot of local motorcycle riders. And up at the top of Lockhart's Gap, there's a viewing area up there, and you can also get access onto the Eskdale Spur track, which is a good fun track to do, not terribly difficult. And speaking of Eskdale, here we are coming into Eskdale now. Great little country town. There's the IGA there, you can get fuel, the Eskdale Pub, and one or two cafes as well. great little country town. And yeah, if you find yourself passing through at mealtime, check out the Eskdale Pub. The run through from Eskdale to Mitta is a further probably 20-25 k's, something like that. And as you can see, hopefully, the scenery just keeps changing. Some great views that the GoPro is not quite capturing there out to the left across the valley and towards the hills. So I had headed off pretty early in the morning, so the sun was coming up and the cloud just sort of starting to lift. A little bit of a view across the valley there as we sweep around on this section of road. And yeah, it's not too long after that you're actually down in the valley and heading towards Mitta. You can see the sun sort of making an effort there to come through the clouds. And yeah, already we're just 5 kilometres out of Mitta. And that's the turn off just on the left there through to Dartmouth Dam and the Dartmouth Fire Tower, which is one of the few fire towers that actually has a viewing area that you can climb up to and get some great views of the surrounding area. I should probably do a trip up there and film it for you guys. It's well worth it, and it's not difficult to get to either. And there's a few different ways to get there. You can just go out to Dartmouth and up and down the track. It's probably a nicer drive to come in from the back and then come down towards the dam. Now, as we're working our way through to Mitta, you can see on the left there, Long Drop Toilet and Campground. That's the Mill Campground. It's a free camp just about 3 or 4 kilometres from Mitta. So like a lot of people will camp there for a few nights, and maybe one of those nights just come into Mitta. Everyone just calls it Mitta. It's only 3 k's to the pub for a meal one night. Mitta Pub was renovated a few years ago. They did a fantastic job. And the meals are always good. They've got a great sitting area out the back, and it backs onto the Mitta River. Just coming into town here. Now, obviously on this trip, it's still early in the morning and not mealtime. The pub's probably not even open yet, but that's the Mitta Pub there on the left-hand side. Well worth a stop for lunch or dinner if you're in the area. Now, as the sign says there on the right-hand side, Mitta is your last chance to get fuel before you get to Omeo. It's 128 kilometres of sometimes steepish, winding terrain. So I guess particularly if you were towing, you'd want to be conscious of your fuel usage and think about whether you needed to fill up if you hadn't filled up recently already. Now, as you can see, this first section of the road here from Mitta follows along the river quite nicely. Now, this is actually the Snowy Creek here that it's following along, and for quite a long ways the road changes in elevation and you climb up away from the creek and then back down to it, and in a couple of places I think we do cross over it. But pretty much we follow the line of that creek all the way through. And ever since I first drove this probably 12 years ago in my VX Commodore wagon back then, even though half of it was gravel, I thought this was just amazing scenery to be able to access in just about any vehicle. You don't have to have a four-wheel drive to get up into this part of the high country and really enjoy the views and what it has to offer. There are, of course, a few side tracks that are definitely four-wheel drive tracks, so check out your HEMA or rooftop maps for those. as you can see, there is absolutely no shortage of sharp turns. Those 35, and yeah, as I've just put on the screen there, there's a little access track down to the river there, and they sort of split off periodically here and there. As I was saying, you know, there's no shortage of 35km/h bends on this section of road, and the further south you get, the more you get. Coming up here, this is actually Granite Flat, an old mining town site. That's the old church on the right hand side there. That's about the only building left standing. I have stopped there before. There's some signage that tells you a little bit about it, and also there's an old cemetery further up the hill you can check out. This is the Walnuts campground, which is about another 3 or 4 k's down the road past Granite Flat Township. Another free camp spot, as I said, one of many along the Omeo Highway here. And yeah, you can get some sense. So a lot of the road here is very twisty, and a lot of the sections have no crash barriers. There's a few that do, but the vast majority of this road has some really sharp corners with no safety barriers along most of it. So you do want to manage your speed and drive according to the conditions at the time when you're driving. So you can see there the Snowy Creek. We're still working our way along that. As I said, the road goes up and down and crosses over and crosses back, but we do always keep coming back. Just a really scenic drive through here. And look, I know this style of video is probably not everybody's cup of tea, but it's a great little tourist drive through here, and one that I wanted to share. And I guess the views will tell the story as to whether you guys agree that it was worth sharing or not. So coming up here on the right hand side, not that grassy area there, but just a little bit further down here, is the Lightening Creek Camp Ground on the right hand side there, just over that bridge. So as I said, that's another of the many campgrounds that you will find along the Omeo Highway here, and there's a few other creeks that flow into the Snowy Creek as well. And I didn't see a lot of traffic. I guess coupled the fact that it was early in the morning and a weekday is probably part of the reason, but weekends this can get quite busy, and you can just see from the sheer number of these blind corners, you really do have to manage your speed and make sure you're on the right side of the road for any oncoming traffic, because in some cases you're not going to get a lot of warning. Now the drive through the Omeo Highway, if you drive it straight through and you don't stop like I did, is around about 2.5 hours. And you can see here, getting a little further south and a little higher in the elevation, we've actually got yellow line markings indicating that at times this part of the highway may be subject to snowfall. And you can see here just how quickly the weather changes. Blue skies and sunshine at the slightly lower altitudes, and get a little bit higher and we're into this cloud or fog bank, which certainly impacted visibility quite a lot. And the road was a little bit damp, so again, you got to drive to the conditions. But you would think this was shot on a different day. Certainly felt that way when I was driving it. A little bit of condensation there on the camera lens. I don't think it was actually raining per se. I think it was just the fog, cloud condensing on the camera lens. And here we are coming into the township of Glen Valley. Glen Willis is an older township that you do sort of drive through just before this. There's really not much of anything there, and not even a sign, I don't think, or if there was I missed it or wasn't filming at that time. So Glen Valley is a little rural township. There's a few houses here, but there's no shops or amenities or anything like that. And this is all part of the Mount Willis or Mount Wills historic area. Which I'm pretty sure, like a lot of the historic areas in the high country, stems back to a history of gold mining in the area. Certainly a fairly remote little township here. And so as you head south out of Glen Valley a little bit further, you cross this bridge over the Big River. And just up here on the right is the Big River Bridge camping area, all the access to it just there on the right hand side. And again, I believe that's another free camp with long drop facilities and quite a large number of campsites in there. And once again, we're sort of down close to the river, and this is now the Big River as it's called in this area. And the road is working its way along. We've got a stint from the Big River Bridge camping area, about 6 or 7 k's through. We just passed Fitzgeralds Rd there. That's got access to a couple of hiking tracks, but no four-wheel drive tracks. One of the river access tracks just there on the left. And coming along here, not too much further, is the rear access up into Falls Creek, which is via the Bogong High Plains Rd. Now this access is seasonally closed at the moment. There's been a collapse on the western end of the Bogong High Plains Rd, and that's shut probably till February of 2023. So at the moment this is the only access up to Falls Creek. But it is seasonally closed, usually from the June long weekend up until the end of October, most commonly. Again, some good views there of the Big River. And this is the eastern end of the Bogong High Plains Rd that I was just mentioning, that gives you the access up into Falls Creek. So from here, it's about 11 kilometres through to Angler's Rest. Angler's Rest, there is a couple of campgrounds there, and there is also the Blue Duck Inn, which is well worth checking out. They're open for meals. During peak season they do close during winter, I'm fairly sure. And yeah, this section of road gets fairly elevated up from the river. And is very popular with motorcycle riders, and as you can see there, some crash barriers have been installed recently. They haven't been there all that long. There's a lot of accidents along here with motorcycle riders and vehicles as well. See the Skippy there, slowed down to see if he'd move off the road, which he did do. But yeah, there are a lot of accidents along here just purely because the road is what it is. So worth keeping that in mind. But as you can see, look, just absolutely cracking views. So that's Callaghan's Road on the right hand side there, and that is the access road. Takes you in across some private property, ultimately to McNamara's hut, which was one of the earliest videos I posted on the channel. So that's where you have to get the access from. We tried coming in from a bunch of different ways, and that's one of the camping areas just there on the left hand side. This is Angler's Rest, and that's the Blue Duck Inn. And as I mentioned, great meals, great place to stop for a break, and they do have accommodation there as well. Not a lot, I think they've got about 4, maybe 5 rooms, something like that. So you can pre-book that. And from here, it's a good sort of 25-30 k's of fairly twisty road into Omeo, and again, the road here is fairly high compared to the river down below, and there's not too much in the way of gazetted camping spots between Angler's Rest and Omeo itself. But it's still quite an enjoyable drive. So if you were coming out of Albury and you wanted to get through to Omeo, I guess your 2 options are you either go over Hotham, Dinner Plain, and down into Omeo that way, which you know, is a nice drive in and of its own, or you can take the Omeo Highway here by heading east out of Albury towards Township, and then south on the Omeo Highway. It's not too long before the last section does open up into this valley, and again, yeah, quite a nice little way to end the trip through to Omeo on the Omeo Highway. Doesn't mean you're done with the hairpin corners, of course. Not quite as steep a drop off, or at least as far on the sides of the road here though. And there were some roadworks underway at the time. This is likely probably finished by now. Hopefully they had this done before we had the flooding events, because this was shot before then. Quite an upgrade there to the drainage infrastructure by the looks. And from here, yeah, literally just a few k's into Omeo from here. Omeo is a great place to stop. I've had meals there at a few of the pubs. There's the Hilltop Hotel, as well as I think it's called the Golden Square Hotel down near the bakery there, and there's also the Cuckoo Clock shop as well. That's not too far from the bakery, well worth checking out. You don't see those around too much more. And then if you're looking to explore the area around Omeo, out towards the west, up towards Dinner Plain, there's the Oriental Claims historic area that's well worth checking out. A little bit to the south, you've got the Casillas historic mining area as well, which is also well worth checking out. If you guys have found this video interesting and informative and have enjoyed watching it, we will be back with another 4-wheel drive video next week. As always, thanks for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, and if you've got any questions, leave them down below.